New on Curiosity Stream.
I'm James Burke. I'm going to take you on a journey through time.
James Burke's visionary series returns, reimagined for our time.
Now, this is all uncharted territory.
The Washington Post hails Burke as one of the most intriguing minds in the Western world. The New York Times raves he careens from one great moment in history to another.
Where do we want to go from here?
Experience all new Connections.
So what's the next connection?
With monthly, annual, and bundled plans, find the one that works for you at CuriosityStream.com. New on Curiosity Stream. How do you connect a 16th century potato to limitless energy production? Could Napoleon's toothpick have a direct link to a machine that predicts the future? And how can a 1700s conch shell chart a course to humans connecting their brains to the internet? James Burke's visionary series Connections returns for a new generation. Experience all new Connections. With monthly, annual, and bundled plans, find the one that works for you at CuriosityStream.com.
Welcome to Pretty Lies and Alibis. Let's seek the truth and travel the long road to justice together. What you know, Alibiers, happy Tuesday, August 23rd. We are hopping back into the Vallow Daybell mega series. Did a couple of episodes yesterday, catching up on some of the other cases that we're covering. Before we get started, I want to give a big thank you to Trisha from Web Sleuth. I was on her live last night. We had a great discussion about the new Netflix documentary coming out September 14th that tells Colby's story, apparently. Seems like we're going to have some jailhouse calls between him and his mom in there. There were some videos and pictures I had never seen. Sounds like maybe Lori's mom, Janice, is going to be on there as well. We have not heard from them since the kids' bodies were found. In fact, I remember hearing somewhere Nate Eaton saying that some of the feelings may have changed since the kids' bodies were found. They trusted Lori that the kids were okay. So before we get into it, our music fact of the day, if you've ever been on a road trip with me, and Fruit Loop has, and my kids can attest to this, and anybody who's ever been on a road trip, Don McLean, American Pie, I will sing all 8 minutes and 42 seconds of it at the top of my lungs. But this combined version is the 6th longest song to enter the Billboard Hot 100. At the time of release, it was the longest. It held this record for almost 50 years, and it was broken last year by Taylor Swift when she released the 10-minute version of All Too Well. That song is great, by the way. I absolutely love that song. Both. All Too Well. I love me some Taylor Swift. All right. Also, the day the music died. That refers to the plane crash that killed Buddy Holly, the Big Bopper, and Richie Valens. The song is full of opposites. So if you listen to it, a lot of the things in there are opposite. And I think it kind of speaks to, in his mind, the world went kind of topsy-turvy when that happened. All right. So we are picking up. We left off with the attempt on Brandon. And then the last thing was that Brandon had hired Rich Robertson as his private investigator to find Melaniece, Alex, and the Jeep. So on October 14th, Alex emails Lori 2 photos of Mesa Falls from his Yahoo account. If you're on YouTube, that's up there real quick. Not sure the significance. And the same day, Melaniece and Brandon have an exchange where Melaniece says she's moving to Boise. And she says, I've made the decision to move to Boise. We will need to create a new schedule for the kids. We can pay to go to mediation again or save the money by coming to a mutual agreement. I'm fine with whatever you decide. The kids could remain with you in Arizona. You would have to arrange for daycare, and I could have the kids for school holidays and summers. Or I could take the kids to Idaho and enroll them in school there, and you could have the kids for school holidays and summers. Please let me know what you'd like to do. And Brandon responds, seriously? And Melaniece says, yes. And Brandon says, why? How is that good for our kids? I don't understand. I'll keep them in Arizona and figure it out. But why? These kids are going to need us both. They need things to stay the same and to have structure. Spoken like the smart parent there, Brandon. That's exactly right. He asks, when are you moving? There's no response. He says, is that it? No more information? This is pretty important. Can you give me more details if you are planning on moving? You should have them, right? Melaniece says, I'm planning to go next week. And Brandon says, what day? And he says, are you still planning on having the kids this week and weekend? So Brandon calls an investigator in Gilbert who is working on his attempted murder case. Remember, that just happened. And tells this investigator about the move. He said this is really odd behavior for her because she's never mentioned Boise in the past, and she normally would never want to separate from her kids. He also mentions she has a rental agreement until July of 2020 in Gilbert. The same day, Kay emails Lori and begs for her to let them FaceTime JJ. She said there's no need to cut him out of our lives and the situation can be handled civilly. Please tell him we love him. And unfortunately, at this point, JJ is gone. October 15th, Brandon calls the investigator again and says he's retained legal counsel. He learned he was still legally married to her. And so they still have 50-50 custody, which meant legally Melaniece could have taken those kids to Idaho. And we don't even want to imagine what might have happened with that. So Brandon ultimately says that he would not exchange the kids with her the next day as scheduled. So on the 16th, Melaniece tries to get her kids from school and finds out Brandon did not bring them that day. So she goes to the Gilbert Police Department to file a report. The investigator does not let her know that he has talked to Brandon and questions her about her plans to move to Boise. She said it was an unplanned location and she wanted a fresh start. She also says Brandon was manipulating and threatening to disrupt her relationship with her Aunt Lori. Investigators note Melaniece had no proof of the threats or the manipulation. So sometime around this point, Melaniece uploads a Facebook status reward, $10,000 for location of my family. Please help. My ex-husband, Brandon Boudreau, and 4 beautiful children have been missing. We had a court mediation agreement that was broken October 16th when he began hiding with our children, and he has not taken them to school since October 15th. So they have now been unenrolled due to truant, unexcused absences. I've talked to a few of his friends who shared they have not seen him and can't get a hold of him. I haven't seen my babies since Brandon took them to Utah for fall break on the 9th. I've exhausted all my resources, and now, while feeling my children could be in danger, I feel I should ask for help on here. Taking our children away from their mother for no truthful reason is cruel. I've been persecuted for my faith and accused of false things, but I know who I am, and I know truth will always prevail. I will always love Brandon, and I'm heartbroken for his choices. I feel now that I need to post this truth for any seeking truth amidst all the confusion, but mostly for the safety and finding the whereabouts of my family so I can know they're okay. I would be so grateful for prayers during this time and any information leading to their current location. So around the same time, a family member of Brandon's also puts a post up. Attention, Utah, Arizona areas, kidnapping, 4 children missing. They were last seen with their father. He was supposed to return the children October 15th per their agreement, but has disappeared with the children. Brandon Boudreau, the father, is armed, mentally unstable, and dangerous. He is claiming someone is trying to kill him and that he's in hiding. Yeah, that's right. We're extremely worried about his mental health and the children's safety. Please share these photos if you've seen Brandon or the children. Please, any information is appreciated. Prayers are appreciated. We need to find them. We think they are in the Arizona, Utah, or Oregon areas, as this was the last place he was seen. Melanie is offering a reward to help find her family. Please, if you have any information, reach out to me or Melanie Boudreau, the children's mother. The children were kidnapped by my cousin. This is all heartbreaking. Please help me. Wow. So the same day, Brandon calls the investigator and says he has learned that Melaniece is still on all of his financial accounts, despite her agreeing back in August to remove herself. So Brandon smartly transferred his money to a different financial institution. On October the 16th, Alex goes to the storage unit. And October 17th through the 24th, Lori and Melaniece travel to Hawaii. Now, why does she go? Well, like Kay Woodcock said, when things go down, she scatters like a cockroach. We're getting close to Tammy Daybell's murder. On October 18th, there's a text between Lori and Audrey. It says, not sure how long we'll be here until our work is done. Investigators also find photographs of Lori in Hawaii on her iCloud. So another thing that's important, and it falls into this time frame, according to a request for documents, I think it was more of a search warrant. It looks like Tammy may have confided in a coworker about marital problems, because the request asked for any and all emails or texts sent by Miss Tamara Daybell regarding relationship with Mr. Chad Daybell and or current charges. And in parentheses, it says, for example, an email the night before the passing of Miss Daybell, which I've always found interesting because Melanie Gibb said in a heated moment, she did confront Chad. Lori told Melanie Gibb Tammy was suspicious, all that stuff. So we are going, before we get into the murder of Tammy, we are going to take a little break. And I appreciate your patience with this. It helps me to do what I do every day. A word from our sponsor, BetterHelp. That's HELP. And we've talked about this on the last episode. You know, sometimes we have problems that are little that are consuming. We have problems that are big that are consuming. Little problems add up if you have a bunch, and it becomes a whole mess. And then your brain just can't function normally. And how can we be happy with so much conflict going on, so much trauma? People have a lot of things that are unresolved from childhood all the way through adulthood. And problem solving mode can go out the window when the problems just overtake your brain. When you learn how to find ways to deal with these issues, it is a great feeling. And sometimes we need somebody from the outside looking in to help us do that. I've definitely have had counseling at different times in my life for various reasons. I was embarrassed to go. I felt at that time it was a weakness, but it shows strength to get help for these issues. The outcome was I was given the tools necessary to be able to navigate things on my own in a healthy way instead of an unhealthy way, which is what I was doing at the time. So in the end, the strategies I learned, I could have never figured out on my own. And that's why these are trained professionals. So if you're thinking of giving therapy a try, BetterHelp's a great option. It's convenient, it's accessible, it's affordable, and it's entirely online. You can do face-to-face video chats, you can do text chats, phone chats. And so for people who are hesitant to make a call and actually go into a doctor's office, this is an amazing option. Or if you're not embarrassed to go be seen in an office, this is very convenient. You don't have to leave your house. So you can get matched with a therapist after filling out a brief survey. If you're not comfortable with your therapist, you can switch at any time. So we want you to be a better problem solver. Therapy can get you there. Visit betterhelp.com/whattheworld today and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/whattheworld. All right, here we go. Unfortunately, this is one of those episodes I have dreaded Just as I dreaded talking about the death of Joe Ryan, I will always say that was possibly another murder with Charles, with JJ, with Tylee. Tammy would be the last of their victims. And so before her murder, a few people that knew her noticed some changes in her demeanor, such as a neighbor said that shortly before her murder, Tammy and Chad came to buy some pumpkins as they did every year, and Tammy seemed distant. A coworker gave an interview to KSL TV 5 and said that Tammy was not acting like herself at all in the days before the murder. She went to talk to Tammy about book recommendations, as she often did, but Tammy was distant. And she was described as someone who was always smiling and happy and twirling down the hallway, just always in a good mood, infectiously happy from what I gather. But this friend was coming in to ask her about another book recommendation, and Tammy seemed really busy and didn't talk a lot. And she said she seemed frustrated, which was very odd for her. So we know that Chad significantly raised her life insurance policy shortly before her murder, one of them at least that we know of. There usually is like a time frame of when you raise it to when you can cash in on it. I believe he raised it in September at some point. I would be curious to see how many days after the 30, usually it's 30, that she was murdered. What's interesting to note is Alex was pinged in a church parking lot 2.5 miles away when Tammy was murdered. So Chad called 911 and said that Tammy died in her sleep. He said she went to bed with a cough and didn't wake up. He said her health had been failing and she was getting weak. When she visited her family just prior to her murder, we covered this. She was fine, clogging in the living room, having fun, dancing around. The other thing too is she was also actively involved in her church. She specifically mentioned that enrichment group the night Alex took a shot at her. And she was training it. I don't think it was a triathlon. I think it was like a 3-mile marathon. And there was some speculation maybe she was not going to actually run it, but was donating or something like that. But the bottom line is this. Nobody that knew Tammy, as far as her family in Utah, her coworkers, her neighbors, we've never heard from any of them that she was in failing health. So, as we know, Chad refused an autopsy and the coroner didn't perform one. So Tammy was sent directly to the funeral home. And in Idaho, county coroners decide if autopsies will be performed. And the coroner, Brenda Dye, did not order one. Nate Eaton said on the Wicked Words podcast from CrimeCon that at that time, Fremont County was only budgeted for 2 autopsies a year, which is crazy. You can't put a budget on making sure somebody wasn't murdered. And this is another thing I have a huge problem with. Coroners are elected positions for 4 years, and they're only required to attend a coroner school and complete 24 hours of additional training every 2 years. This has to change. We need trained medical professionals that go to college to learn how to spot when something is a natural death and when it's a little suspicious. And a little suspicious to me is 49, because here's my thing. We know she was murdered, but the coroner, to me, would look and say, this lady's 49. She's got kids. She's got grandkids. Maybe we should make sure there was not something congenital wrong with her that her kids and grandkids may need to monitor. I mean, it's just insane if you think about it. There's been so much inconsistency about the night that Tammy was murdered. In one version, Garth, their son, said he heard a thump and heard Chad scream for him. His sister Samantha told Dateline that Chad called her and said Tammy passed away in her sleep. He told her she was sick, had a coughing fit, and passed away. In a post on AVAL, the Voice of Warning forum that a lot of these guys were on, Chad made a post 12 days after her murder called Moving into the Second Half of My Life. He said, when I awoke around 6 a.m., it was clear she had been gone for several hours. I couldn't believe I hadn't been awakened somehow. But all indications are that her spirit simply slipped away during the night. That's very different than the thump and him screaming for his son, Garth. But on the 2020 episode, Garth said he heard his dad yell, Garth, Garth, come quick. It was the most panic I'd ever heard in his voice. Garth said his mom was already dead and they called 911. He said, my dad was just pacing back and forth, just saying, why? How could this happen? And he was pointing at pictures on the wall. She can't be dead. Like, how could this be? What do we do? He failed to tell his son Garth that Viola had taken over Tammy's body and he had communicated with Tammy. Her spirit was already in limbo and she was frustrated. She died on a Saturday and her viewing was 2 days later on Monday in Utah. And so I have some things here from that. Let me make sure I'm putting the right picture up. Yeah. Okay. So this is her certificate of death, the original one. And there is her headstone there, and then just a little tribute her parents did with a picture of her with Jesus in a frame. And then this on the top from East Idaho News, that was actually at the Rexburg service for her just a few days later. Here's the funeral flyer. That's what I actually intended to put up. So it has a beautiful picture of Tammy with that smile that just, puts the warmth out there. It says that Garth spoke, Seth spoke, Chad and Emma spoke. The musical number was Love at Home by Leah Daybell. There were some other speakers, and the closing song was 300 Families Can Be Together, or it says number 300 Families Can Be Together Forever. So here are some photos from the graveside. I've blacked out people that were attending. There were kids in there, and I don't want to put anybody's photo on here that was attending. But you see Chad and Garth looking over her coffin, and you see Chad looking like he's thinking about something other than laying his wife to rest because he murdered her. And, we've heard various stories about his behavior at that funeral, such as he was rating people as light and dark. And that's just very, very Chad. So anyways, where were we? So the son Garth said they told me she had been this word gets me every time, y'all, asphyxiated, but we never saw an autopsy. The other son Mark said that doesn't necessarily mean smothered. He said, according to my understanding, it just means the breath was interrupted, and in the end, she wasn't able to breathe. And according to that, there's more facts we need to know. We don't just say, oh, well, bye, Chad. No, there's still love. There's still connection. The kids say on that 2020 episode that their mom was in failing health. But like I said, why isn't anyone else who knew her say that? And again, why would Chad let her or the kids let her drive to visit her parents just shortly before her murder if she was in that bad a shape? Because it was all a lie. They also said the kids, it was them who denied the autopsy and not Chad. Although I really kind of feel like this interview may have been some of Chad's defense. This is just a theory on my part. Pryor's idea, number one, because they filmed on that property, which John Pryor owns the deed or the rights to the house or whatever. And it was very pro Chad. I kind of feel like maybe this interview was done. Hey, you got to get your dad, in a good light. I don't know. It was a kind of a bizarre interview. I did feel very bad for all the kids, especially there were a couple in the back that didn't say much, and the pain on their face was very, very evident. I haven't walked a day in their shoes. Their burden is heavy, just as Colby's and Kay and Larry and Annie and everybody who was thrust into this situation. So I just want to put that out there. I'm not going to bash Chad's kids. So his daughter Emma said in that 2020 special, the narrative is that he was going, no autopsy, but he was standing there in complete shock, traumatized, letting us make the decision. If he was trying to hide something, you wouldn't leave something like that up to your kids if I was trying to hide something. So the initial cause of death for Tammy was like a cardiac event. And I've re-put that original death certificate back up. So it was ruled as a cardiac event and pulmonary edema. The time of death was listed between midnight and 5 a.m. She was officially pronounced dead at what I think is 6:45. It's small writing. It's hard to read. The manner of death was listed as natural. So a friend and coworker told KSL TV she smiled nonstop. She was out to do her very best and then some. She was the most amazing person ever. You only meet someone like her once in a lifetime. And she talked about her kids nonstop. We know she had some grandkids too, one on the way when she was murdered. But she said she had noticed something different about Tammy during her last visit. So apparently they would suggest books and Tammy would give her book suggestions to read. And so this friend went into the library to talk to her about that and said she was distant. And she said she seemed really busy and didn't want to talk a lot, kind of frustrated. And that was not typical of Tammy. So the day after she died, the same lady and some other staff members met at the school where she was the librarian. And by the way, Emma, I believe, teaches there. They met there to remember and mourn Tammy. But Emma told a couple of them that she was worried about the state of her mom's body, saying she had pink foam coming out of her mouth. And Julie Rowe told Nancy Grace one report said he found her deceased in the bed. Emma told her she was found on the floor and had foam with blood coming from her mouth. That goes back to the Garth statement saying he heard a thud. Chad screamed. Chad said, I woke up. She died peacefully in her sleep. I can't believe I didn't wake up. Also, she told Fox 10 Phoenix that the day Tammy died, one of Chad and Tammy's daughters called her and says she was most scared of her dad getting remarried. So Sheriff Lynn Humphreys told Nate Eaton in early 2020 that Chad was acting normal. He was acting the way someone would act who had just lost his wife, and that deputies did not detect anything suspicious. It was only a few days after Tammy's murder, though, that he was alerted by detectives in Arizona about the other deaths. Also, on February 11th, Lynn Humphreys gave an interview about the investigation into Tammy's death. He said there's varying degrees of cooperation among different family members. I know there was a report that we had met with the family privately and released the autopsy results to him. That was totally fictitious. He also addressed a recording of a Fremont County dispatcher saying Tammy's family refused an autopsy. He said, I know that was a recording that came out of our office. I know that was a recording, you have to understand that that was a dispatcher who was very new and didn't have the complete information. She didn't have all the facts. It kind of gives the impression that the families are the ones who make the determination whether or not there's an autopsy. And that actually is the coroner that makes that determination, regardless of if the family wants one or not. If the coroner believes it's necessary, then it happens. He told that to, it was posted on Fox 10 Phoenix, Post Register, and 2KU TV. So now we get to the ugly stuff, the texting. Lori got a text from Nicole at 9:18 a.m. I'm not sure if you heard, but Chad's wife died last night, crying emojis. Lori responds at 9:33 a.m. Oh my gosh, I did not hear that. I'm in Hawaii and it's 6 a.m. and she puts 2 crying emojis. Do you know what happened? Nicole said yes. She awoke in the night coughing, threw up, collapsed, and passed away. Again, there's a different version. Lori gets a text from Gib under the Phoebe name in Lori's contacts. And Gibbs says, I heard what happened to Chad's wife. Oh my gosh. Lori responds, hello? What? So they talk on the phone for 20 minutes and 45 seconds. After the phone call, Gibbs sends Lori a screenshot where Chad had posted on his Facebook that Tammy had died. And that post read, I'm saddened to share that my beautiful, talented wife, Tammy, passed away early this morning in her sleep. It's a shock to all of us. She was so wonderful in every way. We're still working out the details, but we plan to hold a viewing Monday evening in Springville, Utah, then hold the funeral and burial there on Tuesday. We will hold a memorial service in Rexburg on Wednesday at 11 a.m. Investigators note there are no more messages between Lori and the Melanie 2 contact after Tammy's murder. That Melanie 2 was a Chad number, I believe. So then Zulema gets in on the texting. Excuse me, 3:15 p.m. Oh my goodness. Did you know that was going to happen? Yes, she did. How are you? How are you feeling? Maybe it was you that I saw at the temple getting ready to get married just yesterday. And the girl was tiny like you. Lori responds, funny, I love you. Zulema says to Lori, ascended couples. Jules saw them coming soon. Nothing more powerful. She said, I love you too. Lori responds, that's good news. So at the same time that she's texting Lori, she's texting Chad. Hi, Chad. Saw your post. I hope you're okay. Yesterday at the temple, I had a vision that I was helping a bride get ready and helping her with her white dress. Then I see your post today. The Lord is wonderful. She said that. Oh, boy. Oh, man. Lord have mercy in heaven. Chad responds at 10:14 p.m. Thank you, Zulema. I'm hanging in there. Our family has received overwhelming support. Yes, changes are underway. We've all felt Tammy nearby. She's very happy and already very busy. Zulema responds, her work is underway. I'm happy for her. I'm also excited for what's next. I'm praying for you and your family. Much love and comfort to all of you. I hope to see you soon. A neighbor of the Daybells tell investigators that the bonfire pit in their yard was hardly ever used, but soon after Tammy's death, they have frequent bonfires. And I'm going to tell you, for me, Tammy loved children. And to think that that poor woman had no clue that Tylee and JJ were buried on her property while she was alive for several weeks there are no words. Gibb told Nate Eaton of East Idaho News how she learned of Tammy's death, saying someone texted her, a friend, not any person that was associated close, but just a friend. She said, hey, just want to let you know she passed on. I said, how did you find out? The friend said, Facebook. I thought, oh my gosh, she died. That's what they said was going to happen. I wonder what happened. I didn't know how they did it, but I knew it was part of the plan that she was supposed to pass away. Well, why didn't you go to the authorities again? This is the 4th time that there was a missed opportunity to raise a flag. Melaniece told Keith Morrison on Dateline, when I saw Chad's Facebook post, she had passed. It was, I felt sadness for him. I know he adored his wife. I felt sadness for them and their family. Gibb also said in an interview that Tammy confronted Chad about the affair. So February 11th, 2020, we're going to jump ahead. KTVB's request to release that 911 call on the night Tammy was murdered was denied by the prosecutors. Actually, I just found here her life insurance policy was upped on the 9th. So in closing, what I want to do is put up on the screen here, Tammy's family has started a foundation in her honor that I love, and it's called the Tammy Daybell Douglas Foundation. And if I could find the here we go. I will put the link in the description of the video and the podcast. It is their way of honoring what she loved, which is literacy, encouraging kids to read, and also providing books and things like that that kids could keep. So what's neat, guys, is if you go to this page and scroll down, there is a link you can click on that takes you to an Amazon page, and you can choose that as your foundation you support. And every single penny that you spend on Amazon, a portion of that goes to the Tammy Daybell Foundation. I've done it. I know some of you have other ones that you support, and that's okay. But if you don't have one, or you feel compelled to support the foundation that Tammy's family has so graciously set up in her honor in such a beautiful way, please do that. If you can donate, please donate. These people seem so classy. And one little thing we learned from Shane Bishop when he tweeted during one of the Datelines is that Tammy's sister Samantha fixed her hair for her viewing. And I think that's so sweet. As sisters, that was the last thing she could do. And I think that's very beautiful. In closing this episode, I want to say this is something that was said about Tammy. To many people, Tammy is known as TC, or Tough Chick. This nickname originated when she was younger, and her uncle and her brother would beat up on her. She wouldn't take it and always fought back. After having fought back on numerous occasions, she decided to try to scare them off with the meanest look she could muster up. So she gave them her tough chick look. Yeah, so sad. So my thoughts go to her family, and I hope that they are coping the best way they knew how. Her sister Samantha and her husband were on Dateline. They were precious. Her husband would grab her hand when she would get upset. You could tell they were very, very close, and that is a devastating loss. So anyways, thanks guys for hanging in there. 36 minutes. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll pick this up in case, if something crazy happens in another case, but we're going to plow through this so we can get ready for the Wagner trial. In the meantime, I hope you have a wonderful sleep, because it's 10:48. I'm uploading these. Gigi's going night-night. See you soon.
With no fees or minimums and no overdraft fees, banking with Capital One is the easiest decision in the history of decisions. Even easier than choosing to keep the Grinch away from the toy drive.
Who's going to deliver the toys to the kids?
What about me, the Grinch?
No.
Yep, even easier than that.
You steal the presents one time.
With no fees or minimums and no overdraft fees, is it even a decision? That's banking reimagined. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. Capital One N.A. member FDIC. Copyright Dr. Seuss Enterprises. Copyright Turner Entertainment Company.
Okay, round two. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Ah, sorry, we were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right, ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.